Welcome to the show. My name is Karen Holton. I am an ET experiencer and ambassador, an ascension coach, a direct channel, a shamanic guide, and I'm the host of Aliens and Astrology. Be sure to check out more of my unique content on my website, www.KarenHoltonHealthCoach.com, and my YouTube, Odyssey, and Telegram channels, Karen Holton TV. I can also be found on the Forbidden Knowledge News Network, www.forbiddenknowledge.news. My paranormal experiences have taught me to replace my beliefs with working theories, which evolve over time. My co-host is Dave Petrella, and although we hold two different viewpoints, we both see things from the same broad perspective, and we are both passionate about the ascension process.
Hi, I'm Dave Petrella. I'm an astrologer, biologist, spiritual guide, and Oak Island theorist. You can find me on Facebook and YouTube at Dave Petrella, and on Instagram at Dave Petrella12. Please feel free to send me an email through my YouTube page. I'm happy to join Karen in our search for truth. We can find the answers we're looking for about health, science, extraterrestrial intelligence, and many other related topics. We're glad to have you join us today for the show.
Welcome back, everybody. Dave and I have a great show lined up for you today. Our special guest is Robert Khalil. He is known for his outstanding podcast called Typical Skeptic. He has over 8,000 subscribers. If you haven't done so already, go over and show him some love on his YouTube channel. And today we're going to talk about all kinds of things, including the Anunnaki and other paranormal spiritual topics. So what I'd like to do is just turn it over to you, Robert, and let you basically do a little introduction for yourself if there's anything else you want the folks to know about you today.
I'm Rob. I'm the host of the Typical Skeptic podcast, and thank you, Karen and Dave. You guys are great and amazing. Like, I remember when you guys came on my show, you guys are so knowledgeable about so many different topics, and I'm really honored to be amongst you guys because that means a lot to me. That shows me that I'm probably doing something right if you guys want me here. But I always tell people, like, I cover everything on my show. I cover alien contact, alien abduction, the Anunnaki, ancient civilizations, near-death experiences, out-of-body experiences, psychic phenomena. I've been really into psychic phenomena. Like lately, every week on my show, I have a live psychic on, and then that's psychic because I really believe in psychic or PSI phenomena, and I believe that it's a real thing. I think it's one of the most provable forms of the paranormal that we have. I think they're all provable. I believe in them all, but I really believe in psychic phenomena. So basically, that's something that I've been doing to kind of draw an audience is, like try to feature a different psychic every week. And then they do kind of do readings for the audience. And then other shows I do is kind of like just what else I talked about. And I'm on YouTube, I'm on Spotify, I'm on Apple Podcasts, I'm on Rumble, I'm on Rockfin. I try to spread it out all over the place in case something would ever happen with YouTube. But that's pretty much the basis of my podcast.
Wonderful. And Dave, before I ask Robert my first question, do you have anything you want to say?
Oh, it's great. Me and Karen were on Robert's show about 3 or 4 months ago, and it's just a really great, easy conversation. We kind of just talk about whatever comes up. So I'm really excited. I have a lot of psychic friends. I have a lot of people that channel. In fact, I have friends in every group imaginable, and it's important to me that anyone who is a reasonable person and is respectful, we should be able to talk about just about anything and even disagree and be okay with that, and I think I'm trying to set a model too for how I want to see things going in the future. That we're not, no one's ever going to agree on everything. So let's just be respectful, be decent and reasonable. Those are like the two words for me right there. And then you can just open it up and talk about whatever, you can. And the thing too is when you start to get into spirituality and religion, they don't have to be like exclusive of each other. You can be a Christian. I met someone who's a Christian and who's also an astrologer. And so it's like, I think we get hung up on these catalog titles and things. And to me, it's ridiculous because you can believe what you believe and be strong on that if you want to, but it doesn't mean that you shouldn't be able to talk about. I think we should, as humans, should be able to talk about anything personally. And that's how we move forward,
It's interesting you said that, Dave, because I had that issue the other day on my show. Like, I don't know if this is where you guys want to go with this, but I'll just tell you, like, I had Preston Dennett on, who's like a big name in the UFO industry. And like, and Dolly said some things, Dolly comes on with Preston from time to time. And Dolly said some things that like the fans weren't really liking. And I didn't really know how to handle that at first. I never had been like presented with that before. And then I kind of felt like, I was like, well, should I take this down? And then I had a couple of people tell me, they're like, no, just keep it up because freedom of speech is the most important thing. And what I'm trying to do is like, I'm trying to cultivate like an Art Bell, George Norrie, Chris from Forbidden Knowledge, Leak Project, Karen Holton, Dave Petrella type podcast where I can have anything on and talk about anything. You know what I mean? I don't want there to be limits as to what we can or cannot talk about. I think that's really important.
And another thing I just want to add to that, very well said, Robert, is also there's so many bots out there that are that we may think are viewers that are leaving comments that might not even be real. So we really can't even go by what the fans are saying they like and don't like. All we can do is present information. And it's not, I don't think it's our responsibility to make everybody like our content. But, we obviously our numbers are growing. Our fan base is expanding. Obviously, people like our content. So I think, in my opinion, we don't want to get lost looking at the trees instead of the whole forest. And the whole forest is beautiful. And you're right. Everyone has a right to say what they think, and it doesn't have to be popular or even right. It's to stimulate, thinking and expanding consciousness. In my opinion, what do you think, Dave?
Yeah, actually, it's interesting because I just started a book yesterday about the Mayan calendars. I think it's called the 8 Mayan calendars. And one of the things that the Mayans did, according to this book, is that they had a pursuit of the truth, and that was like that was one of their biggest disciplines. There's a specific name for it. I can't remember what it was, but the point is that the objective is let's try to figure out how all this works. So you go out into even Francis Bacon, who I've done a lot with Oak Island, my friend Jake Roberts continues to do. In fact, the show's tonight. If you want to check it out, guys, 4 p.m. Pacific time. Well, it's going to be released tomorrow, Karen. But anyway, go over to Goes to Bacon YouTube channel, and you'll see the show that's airing this Sunday. And it's all about Francis Bacon. Anyway, he was a father of the scientific method, and that's actually just good objective science. And inductive reasoning and all these things is that if you can go out and you can observe things, even if you don't have like a study or if you don't have a formal training in it, if it's inductive, you should be able to figure it out. And I believe that's how the natural world is, and a lot of the ancient civilizations, they valued knowledge and information and wisdom. And they had, even a lot of places had open forums too, where like, I just read The Richest Man in Babylon, another great book, speaking about Mesopotamia. I know we're going to get into a little bit of that today. And according to that book, they had open forums in ancient Babylon where anyone, literally, you could be a beggar on the streets and you can be a rich man. You all get together there in the forum and you start talking about it. I mean, I look at that and I say, that's what I want right there. That's what I want. As long as my only thing is, and for me, it's cosmic law, is that do not harm or interfere or manipulate another, not just person, any consciousness, a living being. It doesn't even have to be visible, but it can be animal, human, insect, plant, whatever. And if you're not harming or interfering, then you have a right to do what you're going to do, and we're all going to be different. But as long as we can keep to that precept, I'm excited about any discussion, and I want people to see it and I want people to engage in it. And maybe I'll change my mind, maybe I won't, but I'm not going to say, no, I'm not going to listen to you. No, that's ridiculous. I don't. And if you guys have seen any of my podcasts, I just recorded another one with Aurora, actually, the other day, Karen, our friend Aurora Seraphine. And we talked about that all throughout the podcast. It's like, share your opinion, share your viewpoint, and then leave it with that person. Don't pressure them. Just put it out there and leave it. And guess what? If they're interested, more than likely not, they're going to contact you. They're going to contact you, because if people feel pressured, they actually get really turned off by that. And I have to tell this to evangelists all the time. And Karen, you know all about this whole thing, as I do. It's like, guys, just relax. Okay. Share what you want to say. I don't need you to lead me to where you want to go with the conversation. Don't lead me to your conclusion. I can handle it, and leave the information. Just like if I talk about astrology, even though I do it every day, I'm not going to say you have to do this. I don't care if the person's not ready for it, that's fine. But what I have to do is I have to leave it in front of them. That's my responsibility. And I say, just give me an hour and let me explain it. If you respect my work, give me an hour. I don't know what you've heard about it, but let me have a shot, please. And then if they say yes, then I share it. If they say no, then I go about my day. Very simple.
Dave, I was thinking you'd probably be into psi or psychic phenomena, because they're not similar, but they're both kind of ways of like somewhat of divination, like astrology, psychic phenomena. They're in that similar category, right? Or no?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Astrology is, the way I teach it as a hard science. It's the science of the solar system. Just because it's not all visible, and we're so obsessed with the materialistic world in this day and age, that's a separate problem. But it is very provable, and I can hang my hat on it every day. I can do it blindfolded, and I know it's going to come out correct because it's a science. If you're doing it as a science, if you're doing it with mathematics, which is the proper way to do it, But I have tons of friends, Robert. I really do. Psychics and channelers, mediums, like paranormal people. And guess what? Sometimes I get information from them that I could not find anywhere else, and it independently verifies what I've discovered on my own. So in that case, it's like I already know, because I know I didn't tell them what I knew. There's no way they could have known that. And sometimes they've come out with a better explanation than I was able to come up with, but it's on the same track. It's like the same general idea. So I think, my thing is be open to all kinds of different information. And then you want to cross check it, but don't put it in the trash can right away. Let it sit sometimes you need a few weeks or months, to let it sit with you and see how you feel about it. And then you go from there, man. But yeah, any kind of information, no matter how it gets to me, for the most part, except for potentially a few moralistic issues that might come up, I want to hear about it, and people all the time, they're like, Dave, join our church or join I'm like, no, I'm good, guys. I don't need that. You got to understand this. I've been doing this for 15, 20 years. Officially, and then the rest of my life, informally. And the point is that I know who I am. I don't need a figure to lead me. I appreciate good examples, and I'm very thankful for, people like Christ and Buddha and Krishna, but it's not my, the word worship to me is problematic. I don't worship anyone or anything. I can handle it, and meaning that I know how to treat people. If I'm off base, the people will tell me I'm off base, and then I'll change. But we have the sovereignty, and I think we really need to get back to that, is that look to people who are doing a good job for a good example, but it's about us having sovereignty as conscious beings, and that goes for aliens too, and all this stuff. Don't get in there and interfere. You let things happen naturally.
I sometimes worship makes me agnostic, if that makes any sense. Like,
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I feel like pressure from spirituality and religion to feel like I need to worship a creator, but like sometimes I'm in the state where I feel like I'm not sure what I believe, because I do believe that we have like an immaculate body. Like we have like our brain and a heart, it's all too amazing to be a matter of coincidence. I mean, I guess it very well could be, but it seems like something created us. I just don't know what that is. I believe there's a God, I think. I don't know. Or could it be like that we live in a simulation and somebody's like programmed all this, and that we're like souls living inside these bodies, inside this matrix? I mean, I cover that too. I cover simulation theory. I mean, like, I don't know what you guys think about that, but I know that's kind of heavy stuff, but wherever you guys want to go with that.
Oh, I just want to say something before we continue. And as I don't know if you both know, some people know, some don't. But anyway, I actually, when I was younger, like in my early 20s and late teens, I was having a lot of problems. Just going to say it, I had a lot of problems. I ended up getting converted by the Jehovah's Witnesses. So I was like 20 years old when I joined, and I stayed with the organization for 17 years. I got to the point where I couldn't do it anymore. I just couldn't do it anymore. I saw the hypocrisy and the problems, and it was wearing me out, and I just didn't want to do it anymore. So I left. And then, but after 17 years of brainwashing, I really didn't know what end was up. And I sure didn't want to piss God off, because I needed all the help I could get, as a low income single mom, had issues. And so I prayed about it, and I prayed, really good about it, and asked, show me what direction. I don't know what direction to go in. And I was given a vision. So the vision was that look at religion as being like a chair. Okay, you can go and sit in a pew, a hard pew, and do kneeling and all of that in a church if you want to. Or you can have a big, fat, overstuffed couch, and you can do it that way. And I was shown all these different ways of sitting in different kinds of chairs and seats and couches and cushions. And ultimately, what the vision meant was that it's up to us. It's up to us to choose. And I said, I want something really comfy. I want something like a big futon on the floor so I can change position and be comfortable, or have a nap when I need to. This is all in, symbolism. It's not in words. It's like, for me, it's almost like watching a little video, right? Anyway,
Karen, I actually do have a futon on the floor, by the way. So I really like that.
So you know what I mean? And so that's what I chose for my religious vehicle. And I didn't want to go to church, because I know so much. Each church has a little tiny piece. And I've studied so much that I knew lots of pieces, so I could see the bigger picture, or the whole elephant, not just the tail and not just the ear. And so I felt like asking some of us to go to church is like asking Superman to take the bus. When you can fly, you can fly. Anyway, I'm sorry, I didn't want to take up too much time. I just wanted to tell you my experience on religion. So it's really up to us what we want, whatever we want. It works.
Yeah, I believe that. I believe. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Dave.
Oh no, you can go. You can go.
I just believe that like organized religions kind of become like a thorn in our side in a way, like as to where like, I mean, like if you look even back to the like the Spanish conquest of the Americas with Cortez, Pizarro, and Columbus. Like I learned this from Matt LaCroix, and this kind of gets into the ancient history stuff. Like, when they came to the Americas, they tried to, I guess, I don't know this for sure. So I can't say, but they tried to impose Christianity on the natives, and it was like either like convert or die. And then if you look at like the Salem witch trials, it's like the same thing. They killed like mass amounts of people who they accused of being witches, and not just that, then you have like televangelists, and I mean, and I can probably go on and on. Dave, you probably know more than me. Like you're a little bit more learned than I am, but like you guys get what I'm trying to say. It seems.
Oh yeah. Or what about the Inquisition? Or what about what went on during the Borgia popes? Or even what they did to Christ? I mean, according to that, I was going to say story, but I don't want to offend some people. Some people believe it's absolutely real. Other people believe different permutations of the story. But still, look at what religion has done. And even in the last 3 years, look what religion has done for encouraging the congregation to take a medical device that may not, I'm not saying it is or isn't, just don't want to get in trouble with YouTube, but so that all I was so shocked to find out the Jehovah's Witnesses who are so careful, were no blood transfusions and a focus on health, and here they were telling their congregations, it's up to your conscience, go for it. Like nobody, yeah, I agree. Religion seems to be a thorn in our side, and it keeps us from true spirituality.
And here's the biggest one. I just thought of this now. If you think about the Middle East, and like I have like my family's really American, but we have like Lebanese heritage. I'm Greek, and I'm like real Mediterranean. Like I'm like Italian, Greek, and Lebanese. But regardless, like that's kind of I guess where I like history from or whatever. But like if you look at what's going on in the Middle East, that's the perfect example. You have the Christians, the Judaism, and the Muslims like all arguing with each other over what part of the land is theirs and whose religion is right or wrong. And they've been going to war for years about like over religion. I think now it's not as bad. I don't know. I haven't been following it, but I know that it's been going on. I know at least the Jews and the Muslims have been fighting for like 2,000 years, and it's never stopped.
And that's not how you show love. That's not how you show love, and that's one thing that all of the tenets of all the different faiths seem to be is don't hurt anyone else. Like what Dave was saying in the beginning, don't hurt yourself, don't hurt anyone else, have respect. And yet all these wars, like it makes absolutely no sense to me at all. And I want nothing to do with it, any of it. It's disgusting to me. And who suffers? The innocent. How many orphan children and destroyed towns and communities? It's just beyond the scope of this podcast, but it's pretty horrendous, and it's just going all in the name of religion. And then there are other things that I think are also religions, but they're not classed as a religion. So the modern woke version of science to me is a religion. A lot of these politics, it's religious. I can't stand it when there's going to be an election, because everybody goes nuts and they're all hating each other for different political viewpoints. It's just insane. I agree, it's just nastiness, and I don't want any part of it.
Yeah, and it seems like the politicians don't care about us. I mean, I tend to lean more conservative, but like just because it seems like the opposite's really bad. But like at the same time, I realize that those people don't have my best interest in mind either. I don't think any of them do. I'm not sure about that. I don't follow it enough to know. I guess I should be more informed, but I know enough to know that they, like if a politician, maybe I have that wrong. I'm not sure, but it doesn't seem like they have our best interest in mind.
Oh, they don't. When I look at what's going on in the world, and just bear with me, this is a fabrication. This is not based on any facts or truth. This is just how it hits me, is that they basically have like a school, and Klaus Schwab is like the schoolmaster, and he gives these projects to all these different politicians to go out and execute that going on in the different countries, and then he gives them approval or disapproval on how well they did. And it's got nothing to do with us, because we are viewed like cattle. We're viewed no different than cattle. They don't care about us. They think that they know better. It's insane. Anyway, I'll be quiet. Dave, do you want to weigh in on this?
Yeah, I can. I'll answer a couple of the responses here for a few of the. I mean, what a great conversation. I love this, guys. I could do this every week. The flow is perfect, so thank you for that. I mean, it's hard to get that. Okay, so the first thing I want to say is that it's just really beyond belief to me that it seems like so few people, and maybe I'm wrong about this. Maybe it's because I live in America, the United States. I don't know. But the thing is that you really would think at some point in history, after it, like Robert had mentioned, with the wars going on between the Israelis and the Palestinians specifically, is what I think of when I think of the Middle East. The thing about it is you really would think that in a land steeped in so much spiritual tradition, because that is true, it is absolutely that whole area in through Babylon and ancient Egypt and all in there. Even, I mean, just across the water is Greece. You know, Robert mentioned Greece. It's all in this little tight pocket right there. You'd think that someone would be like, this is ridiculous. Why does this continue? And then also the question is, who is God? Where is God? Why is this happening? I know the free will argument, you know, it always comes up, but in my opinion, it gets to a certain point where it's like, okay, you know what? We tried free will. And if you're God, and I don't care what kind of cycle you're in, this stuff pisses me off so bad. And I do all kinds of time cycles and I work with the ages and, you know, all these things. At a certain point, you should step in. Yeah, and I don't care if it's going to mess up your system, okay? If it's disgusting and it's wrong and it's obvious, and any decent person would agree with that, you put a stop to it. You have the power, you put a stop to it. Be like, you know what? I gave you guys a chance. And I think it is set up like that, but it's just, it has been so protracted that it should never have gone this long. I mean, this should have been stopped like BC. We had problems in the BC, you know, and here we are 2000 plus years later. So if my thing is if the God, whoever created this system, and we can go into that too, I'd love to go into that, is not going to put a stop to it, then as far as I'm concerned, it's up to us. So the first thing you do is you figure out what has happened. And to do that, you have to go back into every ancient tradition you possibly can, read the texts. You have to be well-versed in astronomy and astrology, which I didn't even want to do. And it was put basically as a responsibility to me. You know, we're giving this to you, Dave. We know you're going to do it correctly as possible to do a good job. And then understanding the human body, not like it's taught in the Western hemisphere. I'll tell you that right now. It's going to be minimum. You need to get into the Ayurvedic traditions of ancient India and the ancient Chinese medicine minimum, and study the Egyptian pictographs and hieroglyphics as well. Between those three things, you're going to eventually kind of get to the side you need to be on, which is that you can heal your, Karen agrees with me, I know she does, you can heal your body yourself, you know, go the natural routes first, do everything you possibly can, get into meditation, make sure you're sleeping well, don't have any artificial products entering your body, stuff like that. But for me, it's like I watch these things happening, and the central tenet, as far as I'm concerned, and I will say this till the day I'm not on this planet anymore, is that people need to get into fasting. You have to give your body a rest. It just, the things that comes into my mind over and over is, and I know it's hard, believe me, I love food. I love food. My ascendant, you know, Taurus, loves food. I think about food all the time, but you know what? Not at the expense of my brain, not at the expense of my organs. I'm not doing that, because if I can't critically think about things and I can't be quick off the base and off the bat, it's not worth it to me. So if that's a sacrifice, you know, that I have a weakened body and a weakened mind, then no, I'm not going to spend my time excessively with food. But the thing is you know, the body will heal itself. The general idea is that the more food you're putting in, and there's a lot of exceptions. There are. I mean, I'm not discounting that. People have medical issues, pre-existing things, chronic issues, but we have to start teaching it correctly. That's the first thing. And the first place to go for that is called the Sushruta Samhita, Sushruta space Samhita. It's the ancient Ayurvedic text, the primary one out of ancient India. It is the oldest and best intact medical text in the world. That should be required reading for every human. And it's not even just to read the preface or the introduction. I think it's only 30 or 40 pages, you know, but these are the precepts of medicine about fluids in the body, about how energy moves, about salts and oils and all this stuff. I guarantee you we can do it ourselves. You have to take your time. You have to be careful. But that's where I'm trying to get this to. And it's like, okay, if you're, you know, and again, I have my beliefs about this stuff, but this is very basic for me. First of all, anything that's petrochemical based, which is what the pharmaceutical companies do, is poison to your body. There's no questions. Get out of here. Get out of my face. We're not talking about it. That shit, excuse my language, does not go in the human body. You never ingest that. There's no reason to do that. And what it is doing, it's a substitute for the real oils. The real oils come from plants and animals, you know. This is not it's not an edible oil. So, and it gets into a lot of weird stuff when you start talking about that in terms of synthetic oils and synthetic fats and this obsession with this hydrogenation that happened in the 90s and all this crap. There is a reason that people do that, and if you lay off that stuff and you work with the natural oils, guess what? You're going to start to feel, I guarantee you're going to start to feel better for sure. Just at minimum. But anyway, yeah, that's the thing is for go ahead, Robert.
Do you believe in the Ayurvedic supplements? Like I have this one company that sponsors my podcast, but they don't pay me. They just if I sell a product, they give me commission on it or whatever. But they have this Ayurvedic medicine. It's called Shilajit. It's called Shilajit. Have you ever heard of it?
I have not heard of that one. No.
It's like a black tar substance. It's basically from the it's an Ayurvedic thing, I guess. I didn't look into it enough, but supposedly it's supposed to have a lot of health benefits for you. I've heard a lot about Ayurvedic medicine, but I don't know enough about it to comment on it. Is it really good for you though, or as far as supplementation goes, do we not need to supplement with anything?
Does it contain black seed oil, Robert?
I have to have a
because black seed oil has been used for its nutraceutical properties in Ayurvedic, for a long time. I'm not familiar with the product firsthand, so I can't say yay or nay, but I do know that I supplement, but I'm very careful what I supplement with. For instance, I use spirulina. I eat spirulina and chlorella every day. I take C60 every day. That's certainly man-made because it doesn't happen naturally on Earth, but wow, it really helps my body to then be able to heal itself. So it's something that I do use. It's not, I guess, 100% natural. It is natural. It's normally created when, I can't remember, when suns go supernova or something.
That C60 can really help free radicals, and it also can help with radiation poisoning too. I heard that's really good. I used to take C60. I got to get back doing that, but I believe in C60 too. And there's also monoatomic gold. I don't know if you guys believe in that, but that goes back to the Anunnaki. They found white powdered gold under Hathor's temple, and they say that the Anunnaki were making bread cakes out of monoatomic gold and eating it. I don't know exactly where this comes from. This is kind of what I've heard from someone else. So I'm kind of piecing this together. So bear with me here. But they say that if they were making bread cakes out of this powdered gold, because you can't have gold. You can't just ingest gold. It has to be mixed with something. So he thinks that the story of this was Gerald Clark. He said that they might have mixed the gold with stibium, which would have made it a powdered substance, and then they could have ingested it, and then this would have supposedly lengthened their telomeres, because supposedly when the Anunnaki came to Earth, they had problems with aging. They weren't aging wherever they were from, but when they came here, they started to age because the emissary Galzu came from wherever, Nibiru, if you believe that part of the story. I'm just saying. And he said to, I think he said it to Anana or Hertzog, he said, boy, we went to school together, you've aged. And it's weird to think that these people would talk like this, because this is how humans talk, but this is the story from Gerald Clark. So supposedly they started taking this monatomic gold. I don't know how true that is. That could have been from Sitchin, or, I don't know.
Do either you or Dave, have you heard any of the documentaries about a substance that forms naturally on Earth called Ormus? And it's an acronym, ORMUS.
Orbitally rearranged monoatomic elements.
Thank you. And that's tied in with monoatomic gold. And the guy that discovered it, oh my gosh, I've got an audio recording of the information, but apparently it can be turned into, by the use of heat and frequency, all the elements. It can become any element that we need. Anyway, I don't want to go on too much about it, but I'm just wondering if you guys, I would love to do some more research, or if you guys know anything where I could go to learn more about Ormus. Hardly anybody's talking about it anymore, but it is tied in. to the whole mono atomic gold thing. So
yeah, because they have colloidal silver too, like, and it's like they have like, you know, like an enormous, they have like an enormous version of monatomic gold, and then they have an enormous version of silver, which they say if you take like colloidal silver, that can be really good for like, you know, like as another like antioxidants and to ward off colds and stuff like that. A lot of people supplement with like colloidal silver. I know that for sure, but I don't know enough about it to, you know.
Well, I think Dave would agree with me. Everything we need to be happy, healthy, prosperous, to live in love, to have the best health, all of that is available right here on our beautiful natural planet and is in abundance. And I'll give you an example. When my eyes were open to how so many common weeds have terrific and impressive profiles for healing human disease, and everyone's spraying Roundup on them and trying to kill them, and people are lined up at the food bank, and I know because I went to the food bank for many years, to get crappy macaroni and cheese, canned soup, horrible, the worst of the worst for processed foods, right? Meanwhile, they're lined up to get in to get this horrible food, and the weeds are growing everywhere, and we could be harvesting them and making our own nutraceuticals, our own medicines. So sorry, I can't remember where I was going with this.
What's a nutraceutical? What does that do? Is that like something I should know about? I don't know much about that.
A nutraceutical is the natural healing properties of plants. So for instance, you know, we are taught about vitamin A, B, C, D, E, I don't know, F and G, right? And we're taught about minerals, but we're not taught about all the other things, the terpenes, the elements that are in the pigment, like with spirulina and chlorella, a lot of their medicinal properties comes from the color, the things that make up the color. And that's why they say we should eat a rainbow every day. So some kind of food from each of the different color groups, right? So that we're getting this amazing healing property from plants. And then there's also the sun energy that's trapped in the plants. And I'm not talking about super toxic, low grade, unfortunately, most food bank type vegetables, but even supermarket vegetables that are, you know, like anything that's mass produced, it, you know, and has a lot of chemicals. I'm talking about the real thing. So what happens is there's so many elements besides just the trapped energy from the sun, pigments, terpenes, and there's a million other ingredients that none of us knows about and is all there in naturally growing plants, especially wild plants and what we consider weeds. A dandelion is so life-sustaining. It's unbelievable, but nobody knows.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, I try to eat as healthy as I possibly can, within reason. You know what I mean? Like I try to put only like, you know, like basically like basically like the basic vegetables and chicken. I try not to go even red meat. I heard red meat's really bad for you.
I don't know. I eat red meat because I have had I'm not going to get into it here, but I've had a lot of surgeries and botched surgeries. My digestive system doesn't break down plant material the way everybody else, it may for everyone else. And so I do, because there's a lot of vitamins and minerals. But if I am going to eat meat, I make sure that it's humanely raised, grass-fed or pastured, because psychologically, I actually do have a problem with eating meat. I would prefer to be vegan. I'd love to be. But anyway, so it depends on your protein source, and it depends on your cultural background. You know, if you come from thousands of years of generations of people, like, for instance, the Mediterranean, then a lot of the olives and olive oil and Mediterranean foods are really good for you, because you've got generation after generation that's used to eating that, right? And, you know, I don't do well on a tropical diet. I do not tolerate the high fructose that's in a lot of fruits and some vegetables. I don't tolerate it. So I wouldn't survive there. So that's why I don't tell people you have to eat this way or that way. And then again, I think it's about going within and trial and error within our own bodies as to what makes us feel good and what doesn't. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Dave. Did you have something you want to add here?
Oh yeah, I mean, there's so much we can talk about. You guys are doing a great job though. Well, you got plant material and then you got animal material. The red meat specifically has obviously a lot of B vitamins, which generally gives you energy, and it also has very good quality animal fat. There's a lot of animal fat that's used in Ayurvedic medicine as well, and it's one of these things I was going to bring up earlier too. It's one of these things where it's really, according to Hippocrates, one of the fathers of medicine, it's the dose makes the poison. So if you have too much of any one thing, you're going to have, it's true. I've done it myself. I think that for 15 years, every time I'm like, oh, I can work my way around this. It's like, no, actually I can't. And if I think I'm getting away with it, well, guess what? After 3 weeks, I wake up one day and I'm like, oh no, I hit the wall. I hit saturation in my body. And it's not engaging anymore, or it's causing blockages. There's all kinds of stuff. So it's, everything, unless you have a specific issue with like an allergy or something like that to a food, it's going to be a little different for you. But generally, everything has different characteristics that help with different things. And like Karen said, they've all been put here for us so that we can use them to be healthy and happy and vibrant and all of these things. And yet we're going out and putting oil into our bodies that is coming from gasoline and natural gas products and stuff. I mean, come on, this is ridiculous. And then you talk to any of the ancient traditions, no one's going to say that crap. It's absolutely absurd. Now, I want to get back to the monatomic gold because this is a really important one. And I'd actually like to spend like 10 or 15 minutes on the Anunnaki if we can, because I haven't really talked about them on a show before. I know Robert's very knowledgeable on it, and it's a really important topic. When I first started to watch Ancient Aliens on the History Channel, that's kind of one of the things that got me really kicked off onto the spiritual path in the beginning. So I'm very appreciative for that show. If people haven't seen it, I would seriously say to start season 1 and just start working your way through all the episodes. If you want a good primer for high level spirituality, that's where I would actually start. It's easy to find, it's all over the internet and everything. They do reruns all the time on the History Channel. And of course, it's actually the same production company as The Curse of Oak Island, where I did a lot of work with in 2017 and also 2018. So the thing about it is that they're always talking about the Anunnaki, and I had no idea what that was. I didn't even know how to spell it in the beginning. It's a kind of a strange word. What does this mean? Well, the translation is those who from heaven came. That's generally how it's perceived to be translated, which means, sky people coming from the sky, extraterrestrials, you can use all kinds of different terms. And the story, according to Zecharia Sitchin, and, he's not necessarily correct. I think a lot of what he says probably is correct, though, just based on what I feel and what I've learned about ancient Mesopotamia and Sumeria and Babylon in that area, in Assyria. That they came here to mine gold because their planet's atmosphere had collapsed and they were trying to repair their planet's atmosphere. And I've also heard the story of monatomic gold, which is something that they were aging and they were dying. And so that they were potentially mining gold also, or maybe exclusively for that purpose, which would be life extension and increasing the quality of life in the body and energy in the body. So I think it could actually be both. It could be either or. I don't really know. I do the best I can. And that's also, that's how I work. I try to be as humble as possible because if I didn't see it, I say this all the time, if I didn't see it with my literal eyes, I can't say I know that for a fact. If I don't have the firsthand experience, I can't say I know that for a fact. So what I do, and it actually covers my ass, excuse my language again, all the time, is that I say, based on what I know, this is what I believe. And guess what? No one can say, oh, you said that. No, I didn't say that. I said that that's my best interpretation with the information I have. And I would say that I generally do a pretty damn good job getting close to the point. I might be slightly off on the side or whatever, but the more you know and the more reference points you have, the closer I think you can get to the actual meaning. So I do know.
Don't skip over this brief commercial break. Dave and I have some important information for you. You may have noticed that participation in our community does not depend on memberships or donations, and we do not hide our episodes behind a paywall. We want everyone to have the opportunity to learn and share our important content with others. Dave and I both offer services which may make your journey more fulfilling, and I offer some products as well. Our sales and services are what provide us with the means to continue our work, as there are many expenses associated with our mission. Check out our offerings to find that which resonates with you to help create a win-win situation. What I mean by that is financial support to help cover our expenses, but also some great products and services to give you that edge that you've been looking for. Check out my online shop, www.KarenHoltonHealthCoach.com, to find Zendome's orgone generators, comfort crystals, and an array of vital services, all designed to help you to become the change that you wish to see in the world. Now, more than ever, people are awakening to a world we never imagined possible. In response, Dave and I are offering tools, methods, and podcast content to assist you with your awakening process. You are not alone, and there is still much we can do to support our health, emotions, and our spirituality. We both combine ancient wisdoms with cutting-edge technology to help bring comfort to your body, happiness to your mind, and joy to your spirit. To assist you with your life journey, check out my website and find many valuable resources. There's the 9 Steps to Quantum Health Transformation. This is a free, comprehensive online course. Learn about detoxification and nutrition, grounding and spiritual practices, and an advanced version of the Law of Attraction, giving you more of what you really want out of life. I also have my Zendome's Orgonite, which is my unique brand of orgone generators. They're ethically sourced and handmade by a friend of mine, and they're double charged for maximum effect. I also carry comfort crystals, which is a limited collection of energetically infused semi-precious stones. I have an array of vital services, so you can get the one-on-one support that you've been looking for. Also coaching, guidance, and I do assessments and also workshops. And then again, there are the many free resources available on my website. Wisdom to assist with energetic ascension into physical, mental, and spiritual paradise. Also, check out Dave's services. Dave can teach you about astrology and spiritual concepts, principles of Eastern medicine, birth charts, relationship matching, spiritual guidance, fasting, and his unique approach to health. You can find Dave's services on his Facebook page, Instagram at Dave Petrella 12, and his YouTube channel. The links can be found in the description box below. Let us share our quantum work with you. It's your turn to heal, evolve, and thrive. Believe in your ability to succeed. Now, let's get back to the show.
Now, and here's something else. Now, sea salt actually has suspended gold in it. It has actually 84 different minerals in it, which are all of the bioavailable minerals that you need in the body. And that's actually 12 times 7, which is 12 is the zodiac, number of the zodiac, 7 is the number of chakras. That's where you get 84. I found that like right at the beginning. I'm like, okay, this is bridging the spiritual world with the physical world. And it's giving you conduits to different energies and things like that. And your systems of your body, which are also regulated by constellations and by planets, both. So the thing with sea salt is that if you need minerals, and the key is that if you have enough volume in your fluid channels of your body, then it should be able to pass fairly freely. If you have constricted blood vessels, I would not personally recommend it. And the reason is because it's very heavy. You're talking about like some of the heaviest metals on the planet. Gold is extremely heavy. There's also mercury in sea salt, which is extremely heavy, and it's also extremely toxic in high quantities. So I always tell people, I'm like, guys, lay off the sea salt a little bit, especially if you're in an advanced age and you can't pass all the heavy metals through your body, if you're not filtering it properly. So anyway, there is gold in sea salt. So, and if people want to get a feel for what gold feels like in your body, that's where I would start. That's where I would start, and that's probably where I would end also, because it takes a very small amount of it to engage.
So you don't need a large amount, is what you don't need to go out and buy monatomic gold, is what you're saying, like basically.
Yeah, I wouldn't waste my money on that personally, because it's got everything. It's got it's not just going to give you the gold. It's going to give you every bioavailable mineral that the body needs. If that's actually the issue, and that's what you're lacking or what you're looking for, it's highly conductive. We all know that. Gold has some very interesting properties. It's very non-reactive. It's very malleable. It's very conductive. It's all these wonderful things. It's also the metal of the sun. And the sun is essentially the lord of the solar system. There's lots of different gods that are considered lords, but if we don't have the sun, we all die. So it's kind of the king of the solar system.
Yeah, one thing about gold is it never like dies either. Like if you go like and you have a buried treasure ship, and say you find a buried treasure ship from 2,000 years ago, all the copper and everything else will be deteriorated, but the gold will be as pristine as it was when it 2,000 years ago, or whenever that ship sunk. It'll still be the same as it was that day, right?
That's absolutely correct. And I mean, silver gets a tarnish on it, but underneath that, it's still in good quality. But gold, gold, it doesn't. It's amazing, man. I mean, on Oak Island, there's potentially gold down there as well, and I don't think anyone thinks that when it comes up, it's going to be tarnished. It's going to look like exactly the same, and that's because it is the king of metals. It's the metal of the sun. It was called the tears of the sun. Sun god Inti, in South America. So that's what we're dealing with that. And it's also very astrological. The other thing I wanted to add is that it's also very alchemical. So when you're coming into these teachings and you try to look at it and you don't have the reference point so anytime someone says a topic, gold, so then this file opens in my brain and I have it is very organized because I spent my life doing that. I put it in the file where it needs to be. So when I open that file and you're talking about alchemy, the teaching is turning lead to gold. And the most important thing for people to know about that is that each of the planets has a metal associated with them. So the metal of Saturn is lead. The metal of the sun is gold. Here's the corollary for that. The Catholic Church, and I grew up Catholic. I know all about this, believe me. And it was not a great experience. I'm just going to go throw that out there. A lot of guilt, a lot of pushing narratives on people. I checked out. 10th grade, I was done. So here you go. Okay, before I do this, let me just say this. So Saturn is the crown chakra. How do I know that? Because it's called Kronos. Kronos is Saturn. Kronos is the crown. And then you have the sun, which is the fourth chakra, which is essentially the heart. So now you have other things coming in. You have the lion and the lamb motif. Well, guess what that is? The lamb is Aries. That's up here. And Saturn sits on top of that. Saturn's sitting at the crown right here. Aries is the cerebrum, the ram, Aries, the ram. It's actually the upper part of the brain up here and the front of the top half of the front of the face as well. So when you're talking about that and you're talking about alchemy, the idea was that you wanted to turn lead to gold. Now, some people, what they did is they tried to make a profit off of that and rip people off. A lot of people did that. They're in their laboratories creating all this stuff, Okay, you know what? Fine. And supposedly, if you have enough electricity, you can actually create gold out of base metals. That supposedly is possible. And when I say enough, it's like a shocking amount that you need, and it's extended periods of time. And it's prohibitively expensive. But the real meaning is that this is lead right here. It's the pineal gland. That's where Chronos sits. And the seventh chakra. Seventh chakra is the crown, Chronos. Father time, governing all the physical matter of the body, everything below him. And then the sun, or the heart, is the fourth chakra, is gold. So when you're saying lead to gold, okay, well, guess who knows that? The Catholics know that. How do I know that? Because they go like this, right here, lead to gold, lead to gold. Okay, so it's the head to the heart. And that's a connection. In ancient India, it's called the Amrit Nadi. It's an energy current that sends all the power. When you get it to the top, the Kundalini to the top, it sends it to the heart. And when it gets to the heart, the whole body starts to glow. And that's where you get the light body from. And then, of course, over here, you're making the compass points now. You're making the cross and the compass points, cardinal points, and the zodiac and all this stuff. So what I would say to wrap this up is that the whole idea here, the whole key is this life extension and this not aging concept. Because no one wants, we don't want to really die. Most of us don't want. We want to be here. We want to be alive and happy and vibrant. So the search for immortality has been the greatest search, in my opinion, of all mankind. And I think many of our visitors who come here are looking for the same thing because they still haven't figured it out either. And I just want to share one more thing. According to Zechariah Sitchin again, he's got the Lost Book of Enki. It's a really, really good book. I listened to it on audiobook. I highly recommend that. Now, how much? Okay, so you know too, Robert. All right, so this is the part that stood. I mean, it was just absolutely brilliant. I felt like I was living through it, while I was reading through it, like I was there. Okay, so supposedly the Anunnaki come from their planet Nibiru. They come to Earth looking for gold. And when they got here, this was shocking to me. And some people say he's not accurate. Again, I don't know. I have feelings about things, but I keep it all in the back of my head in case I need it. So supposedly when they came here, they actually did not understand the orbitational periods of any of the planets, including the sun and the moon. So some of the first things they did apparently is they were down here observing the movements, trying to figure out, where things are moving. And that tells me something right off the bat, that they couldn't have been the creators. Some people say they were the creators of humanity, Well, that doesn't make sense. Maybe this iteration of humanity, but if you come to the planet and you're like, I mean, come on, you're studying the orbits. It means you don't know them. If you created them, you're already going to know them. It's very interesting to me. And like Robert had talked about too, the fact that their bodies were not accustomed to our atmosphere and to life here and probably to the solar radiation stuff. So they actually, when they were in the water, they wore suits in the water. When they went to the moon, they wore suits on the moon. And this actually, it gets really interesting because you have various depictions of them. Sometimes they look like human gods. Sometimes they look like birds. Sometimes they look like fish. So they have all of these masks and these different outfits. And that's because, according to Sitchin, is that they weren't accustomed to, in terms of, I guess, if you went to the moon, you'd probably be a bird. So you can get up there, fly up there. I don't know. If you're in the ocean, obviously the fish one is obvious. And then if you're not doing any of those things, what you look like is a very muscular human with a wristwatch and a pine cone in your hand. There's all these references, and it's really strange, but that is actually what is on these carvings. It's like, I'm not making it up. People are not making it up. You can go to the libraries and you can see them at the museums. It's very strange.
Do you believe that handbag was, I know that the pine cone symbolizes the spreading of knowledge, but do you believe the handbag was like the seeds of life, or like what they call the MEs, or the tablets of destiny?
Well, what I think it is, Robert, and again, this is because I'm open to everyone. Sometimes I will ask people, and I this is how I do it. This is how good science should be, is that I don't lead up to what I'm looking for. I don't lead up to, when I ask a question, I always have a motive. I mean, it's a good motive, but there's always a reason when I asked it. So I asked someone who is psychic. There you go, into this phenomenon, the psychic person. They don't know about what I'm about when I was going to ask them. And I know that because we talked about it afterwards. They did not know it. And I said, what is that bag? What is this handbag? Some people have said it's a transmitter or a receiver, to talk, and they had helmets and you can talk to your, cohort in space or whatever. Okay, that's possible. Some people said they kept tablets in there, or knowledge, like the ME that Robert's talking about. That's been suggested. But what I actually believe it was And the reason I'm saying this is because if you go to Bulgaria, this is very obscure information. You know, it's hard to find these things. Bulgaria is not that far from Mesopotamia. It's really not. And supposedly the Anunnaki also ventured up into Scandinavia in addition. But we also, and I want to talk about this too in a second, talk about Mount Hermon in Lebanon, because I did not know that, Robert, that you have heritage from there. That's where the Watchers get kicked off, this amazing story.
Yeah.
So I'll return to that in a second. But what this person told me was that there's actually oil in that bag. There's oil in the bag. And because some of the priests in Bulgaria still have that ritual where they actually dip a pine cone in oil and then they anoint the body with it. So I don't know if this was a start, probably was the start of religion, to be quite honest. It's, you know, when you get baptized, sometimes it's in oil, sometimes it's in water. There's all kinds of different ways to talk about this, but supposedly, I guess they would anoint the forehead right here, which is, it's the pineal gland. You know, come on. We know the pine cone, pineal, like this is very basic information now. But here's the problem, and this is always the problem, is that there's this symbolism that comes in, obscures the real meaning. And then you have, it's scary, man. Thousands of years of religion doing the wrong thing. They're like, oh yeah, we get it. You know, we're doing this. Okay, well, how about the oil that's created in your brain, which is called it's called the holy oil. It's called the blood of Christ sometimes, actually. And it's created in the claustrum, which is called the Santa Claustrum, which is the Santa Claus. And the claustrum creates the brain fluid, and that brain fluid comes, this is the real Santa Claus story right here, comes down the chimney. This is the chimney right here. It's your neck. You know, we're not stretching for meaning here. It looks like a chimney. All the gifts from Santa come down the chimney and they get distributed to the rest of the body. And that is composed of oil. It's composed of very delicate oil that comes from the ether, and it precipitates down through the crown and into your brain cavity, and essentially into that structure, which is called the claustrum. So that's the real oil. That's the real baptism. So when I see, you know, and I don't know, maybe it had magical qualities. I have no idea. When they were trying to anoint the head with that, it probably did have some magical, energetic qualities. But all I know is that we're missing the meaning. We're still missing the point. And in order to get that oil to move, again, you go to the Ayurvedic texts, or you go to ancient China and you start talking about meridians and acupressure and acupuncture. They're trying to, when they put their hands on you, they're trying to move the fluids because they're stagnant. It's like, you know, these oils, you have to get the oils to move. So for me, Robert, that's what it is. It was actually a symbolism of anointing, the baptism that's supposed to come not on the outside of the body, but on the inside of the brain.
That's so interesting. And I just wanted to back up what you said about the Anunnaki, because I actually did research on an interview I did before this show. But I knew that Karen wanted to talk about the Anunnaki. So I went back and I watched my interview with Freddie Silva. And I'm so glad you brought that up, Dave, because this relates to what I'm about to say so much. Like when I talked to Freddie, he talked about like the Anunnaki's migration patterns. He said that they were in Scotland and Armenia, but I'll just read you what I wrote from the interview. I wrote,
Okay.
Freddie Silva traced back to the Mediterranean, where he traced the migration from Sardinia to Armenia, where we have the Anunnaki. Then in 3000 BC, they Ireland, Scotland, they are called the Tuatha De Danann. Then that links them to the Tu Danu, which is where you said the Anunnaki, where they migrated around the Black Sea and Bulgaria, Ukraine area to a land called Scythia. And then essentially what happens is this name keeps morphing as they go from place to place. But basically, like Freddie said, they were kind of like the bringers of civilization. Like they were like seeding our reality, if that makes sense. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I think they were actually everywhere across the entire planet.
Yeah.
And I have a couple. I don't know if you've heard these couple, Robert. Some of these came up fairly recently. One of them, supposedly the Incans, or that area around Cusco, around Lake Titicaca in South America. Supposedly there was an interview. Oh, man, I don't even remember where this was. I watched so many videos, but it's either a television program, probably television show. I think I saw it. And they were interviewing one of the local Quechua people, I believe, which is the native tribe down there. And he was talking through translation about the Anunnaki, and he said that they were there. He said, yeah, they were at our lake, you know, and I don't know if some, I don't know who's related to who, but you know, Viracocha might have been an Anunnaki. I don't know. That's what he was saying, you know, their local god. But here's the one that I like. This is my favorite one. This is the most recent one that's come up with any kind of level of detail for me, is the Anasazi. Okay, also called the Puebloan people, right? So this is the American Southwest, in the United States here. And I recently saw an interview by a Zuni elder. He's been on the Leak Project. He's been on Rex Bear's show on Leak Project, Greg Yawakia. And he basically said in one of his, actually wasn't, well, no, it was, but they were out in the field. He was out in the field with Rex Bear out in New Mexico. And as they were going through Zuni, the Zuni territory, he said to Rex that, you know what, the war gods, Enki and Enlil, he said they brought us here. They brought us to Zuni when the migration happened.
Wow.
So this just gets really wild, because it's like, okay, so I guess they were everywhere, and if you're a god or a demigod, there's all kinds of ways that you can travel across oceans. There might even be underground tunnels under the oceans. I mean, maybe there were boats, maybe there were spaceships, maybe there were portals. I don't know, but there's tons of ways to do it.
Do you think they came from? Do you agree with Sitchin, where do you think they might have came from Nibiru, or do you agree with more like Jason from Archaics, who thinks they might have come from? He thinks they came from a land called Dilmun, and that might have come from underground somewhere. And then there's there's Freddie Silva, I guess, who looks at it from like a objective perspective, where Freddie says, okay, we just know that they were here and they were all over the world, but I don't know exactly where they were from. You know what I mean? I guess that's the basic way of talking about all three of those different opinions. I don't know where I stand. I'm honestly undecided. I don't know what to think. You know what I mean?
Well,
because it's so much information.
I know, it's ridiculous, man. It's like, I actually thought I would solve some of these things 10 years ago, and I'm still I'm still fairly undecided about a lot of it. But actually, I can explain some of this in a second, because I think this might help a lot, Robert. I'll say it in a second. But I just want to say, comment on a couple of things you just said. The Dilmun, the land of the peace and beauty and stillness and all these things, I think that was sort of like the Anunnaki's Garden of Eden. And Jason might be correct. I've heard a lot of stories about things coming from underneath. In fact, I just was talking with someone on a show of one of my friends on UPRN network, Laura Lee Potvin's show, and she had a guest. And I asked the guest, because I ask everyone, I'm like, please tell me about Oak Island. Tell me what happened. I'm trying to understand who created all this stuff. And again, Robert, this is I believe, I hope I'm not incorrect, but I believe psychic medium. I believe this lady's a psychic medium, and I believe that's what she calls herself. And it's just amazing how good of a job she did. She told me things about myself. Again, no way she could have known that. And then she also told me about Oak Island. She said, well, what I'm getting is that it actually came from underneath. She said it was low, and it actually rose out of the ocean and then became an island, so these things are all, and she didn't know about these stories, so I think that I personally think that Dilmun was something that was, well, actually, you know what, see, now I got to address this too. So in Genesis, this is the Bible, obviously. In Genesis, it talks about there being a void, and then out of the void, the heavens and the earth were created, and that they were separated and all this stuff. Well, it goes back to Enki and Enlil. Specifically, it goes back to Enki. And and I believe this fully, that he was the god of the underworld, one of them, the god of and when they say that too, they're also talking about the fresh water. He's the god of fresh water. And actually, he is actually Aquarius. That man that you see on the zodiac, that is Enki. He is the water bearer. He is the fresh water bearer. There's a lot of reference points to that. So that's something I like to bring up to people, because people don't often think about that. Who is that guy in the zodiac? That's Enki. That is absolutely Enki. So I think what it is that he lived in one of the underworlds, where all the fresh water was. It wasn't all bad thing. These things can go both ways. And because fresh water is what sustains us, it's absolutely necessary component for life. So I think that in one of the iterations of the earth, he either created himself or he helped to create the actual current positioning of the heavens and the oceans and all that stuff, the land masses. So, those they could have been correlated together or collated together and organized from the void, which he was the god of, so anything to do with the Anunnaki, having to do with coming from underneath or a subterranean, that's absolutely possible. But I feel based on some other things that I know is that was where he set up when he got to Earth. So I do not believe they're from here. I do not at all. I think a lot of them are probably Lyrans and the constellation of Lyra. And I know there's some people that have a similar view on that out there as well. And I think they came here, and then, if you spend thousands of years or more, multiple thousands of years here, it's going to change how you feel about where do I feel comfortable, where do I want to live. There's a lot of association with fish people and Oannes and all this stuff, coming from the ocean and help and teaching. They even have this in Africa, man. People teaching right? People in Africa. You had exactly like Western Africa. You have these people coming from the ocean. They teach the people, and then at night they go back in the ocean, and then they come back in the day and teach them. You have the mermaid traditions from Europe, Melusine and all this stuff. So, man, I don't know what happened, but I just wanted to say this because this is where I sit. This is kind of how I sit on all these topics. Is that the idea of dimensions? And me and Karen have done many shows on this. I've done several on other programs as well, talking about specifically about alternate timelines. And some people think that the Earth has one timeline. It absolutely does not. In my belief, there's at least 21 different Earths. It depends on where you're connected with your frequency, which one you're going to experience. So what happens, and some of us can move through dimensions. I think all of us can, if you know how to move the fluid through your spine. And the chakras are really, they're dimensions. So that's one way to look at them. They're also planets. So I think what happens is that people spend some time in one dimension and they don't realize that they've left the dimension and they're actually in a different dimension. And then when they come to that different dimension, they bring their stories of their version of Earth to the different dimension, and they talk about it like it's fact. Well, the problem is that in the dimension that they're visiting, it never happened. But you would never know that unless you're really paying attention, because they look almost identical, but there's different storylines and different plots and stuff like this. A lot of the gods, depending which dimension you're talking about, they play different roles. Half of them are good roles, half of them are not good roles. The heavens and hells, how they get spread out on the cosmic axis and everything. So I think that's the thing that helps me the most, is that I usually relegate it to that concept, and I don't do that as I'm not trying to cheat or anything or be lazy. I actually think that's what it is. You have different timelines and different stories. Even with the story of Jesus, here's a perfect one with Jesus. Is that Jesus, in my opinion, is the Christ at his highest form. He is the descended master at his highest form in the highest dimension. But when you come down to the earth dimension, he was a man, but also a god. He had human physical qualities. And then when you go down to the lower dimensions, that's when it gets weird. And I think that's when all of these stories about the Jesus lizard person come in. Very, very, very controversial, and I really don't care because it needs to be talked about. And by the way, I believe in the real Christ. I believe in the ascended master. I do. But when you hear the story of Christ in the Bible, I don't know who that is. And the reason I say that, man, is because this is weird. This is really weird. But when I was a kid, I went to CCD and all this stuff, which is the Catechism of the Catholic Church. I always had this weird feeling that when he spoke, I'm like, why does he speak like that? No human talks like that. I don't like the riddle. I don't like this riddle format. And it felt robotic to me. It actually felt robotic, and that was the strangest thing for a kid to feel. And then when I started hearing about all this AI stuff coming in, is that I believe that the character of Jesus, just like all of us, has different versions. And in the lower dimensions where he exists, I believe he is variously a lizard being and also an AI being. And sometimes they get shared, those two terms. So you really have to look across the cosmic axis, I think, for your true full stories.
That's fascinating.
Wow. I just got to break in for a second, and I know we're coming close to the end of the show. And Robert, I know that you prepared some images and some talking points. So I'm wondering if we should do that now or whether you want to just continue the conversation. It's totally up to you, Robert.
I mean, if you want me to talk about, I don't have any images. I kind of just wrote some stuff up about like psychic phenomena and like how into it I am lately, and like, and just some basic stuff about it that I think people might find interesting. If you want me to read some of it, I can, you know.
Well, it's
Robert,
it's up to you. It's up to you. And go ahead, Dave.
I was just going to say, Robert, I definitely want to hear it for sure. But I just want to ask you one question before you read it. Is really quickly, how much time we have, Karen? 10 minutes, roughly?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, Robert, how about like a minute on if you think the Watchers are the same people as the Anunnaki?
Yeah, I think it's the fallen angels that descended on Mount Hermon in Lebanon. I think it's just two different cultures telling the same story. Like I really do. And the other thing I wanted to bring up was when you started talking about the Anasazi, like that made me think of Paul Wallace's amazing story of that Mami Wata tradition, where he talks about like the woman in Africa who was abducted on a beach, and she was taken to an underground alien base, and she was put in a breeding program, but she was treated very nicely. And then she came back and told her family about it. But it's not just her; it's like a whole tradition they have in Africa. So what I guess like what to back up what Dave's saying is it's like there's like this ancient alien type contact all over the world, and it's not, you know, it's just like it's weird because I think it's like we're Americanized, and America's not as old traditionally as some other places. But when you go to other places, if you go to like places like Greece, Lebanon, Africa, Egypt, even Armenia, Scotland, Ireland, everywhere, France, all those places have older traditions than us. And I think that they have a little bit more cultural stories, you know, whereas like America doesn't have that stuff. So we have to rely on like the stories of our ancestors to get it, or stuff we read about, you know, and then we don't know what texts are manipulated or not. And that's a whole other thing. But sorry, I'll let you guys riff on that.
Right. Yeah, that's right. And I have to tell that people all the time, they're like, oh, we know that the Bible is all coming straight from God. I'm like, you don't know that, man. Come on, man. Like in all the, it is, you know, it pisses me off, man. It really does. Because look, if you weren't here, you don't know, man. I'm sorry. And that goes for me too. That's why I always preface what I say with, according to what I know in my research, this is what I believe. Sometimes I say this is what I currently believe, because I'm not above having other information come to me. And guess what? It always does. And it changes the story a little bit. And I just want to ask you one more thing now. Okay, so we got those, you believe they're the same. How about the Elohim? Who are they?
That's a tough one. That's a tough one. You know, well, the Elohim, I think that means made in their image, not in like, you know, like, right. It's Elohim is plural for gods, not God. Right. So like that would mean that they were a form of a god, or not God, but see, because it makes me go back to the Anunnaki. And I was going to ask you this, like, who were they? Do you think that they were actually descendants of God? Like, do you think that God sent them, whoever God is, if he's a matrix programmer somewhere, or if it's some being in our universe that kind of sent these demigods down, and those were also, they could have been the Watchers, they could have been the Elohim, they could have been the fallen angels, they could have been the Anunnaki, but these people, he sent these beings down, and they resembled people, and they kind of helped us spread civilization. I don't know. That's kind of what I'm thinking, because like, yeah, to draw parallels from all over the place, you know.
Can I weigh in on this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I just wanted to say, in my reality, okay, God is not a person of stature and rank and all that. To me, God is everything, and it's the life force, and it's an intelligent, conscious element to everything. And so in that perspective, I don't see God as sending anybody here to do anything, but I do see a very complex and amazing universe that we live in. And even if you just want to make it smaller to our galaxy, or even our star quadrant within the galaxy, it's so wondrously made. I don't think as humans, especially the way we've been programmed for thousands of years, are able to really conceive of the order of it. Now, I do think that, like amongst the Anunnaki, there might be a supreme leader who sent them to Earth, but I don't think it's God. I think God is actually a title, and it has, just like king or a regent or something like that. So I think when we're talking Almighty God, we're talking about universal consciousness. And then when we're talking about the gods or a God that may have sent them here, we're talking about a hierarchical structure within the culture and politic of that particular group of beings. I don't know if that makes any sense, but that's just how I see it.
Yeah, you're talking about like source, like we're all source energy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, that was good, Karen. And I want to add too that the Watcher topic. See, this is the thing: is that I'm not sure who's who, and sometimes people say, "Oh, this god, the corollary of that god in South America is this god." And you know, I don't know that. I don't know that. Some people say that Quetzalcoatl was Jesus. You know, the feathered serpent, which it's possible because there's this reptilian seed that follows him in some of the stories, you know, but I don't know. I look at pictures and I'm like, I just don't know if he is. But the thing about the Watchers that I find very interesting, it's probably the most important point to me, is that the story was supposedly that they rebelled against God, whoever that is. Now, this is what I think. I'll tell you what I really think. I think in this case, the term God is talking about some other extraterrestrial race. It may have been the Greys. It may have been the Dracos. You know, it may have been. Basically, the bottom line is, I think it was probably some nefarious other ET race other than the Anunnaki. Then I think what happened. I think the Anunnaki, if they are the Watchers, I think that they weren't supposed to come down here. Well, now some people say that they came here to help us, and this is when it gets weird. Is that you have both sides. Some people are like, "Oh no, they never would have made us slaves." Well, I bet you in some of the dimensions they did, but I bet you in the higher dimensions they were here to help us. And I think what happened was that they rebelled against a different nefarious ET race, and they're the ones who were saying, "You guys can't come down here to help them." So they rebelled, I think, in the higher regions to actually help us. And the reason I say this is because a lot of the Watchers, they were teaching us agriculture, and they were teaching us how to, astrology, which is huge for me, obviously. They were teaching us the sciences and all these things, mathematics, and about culture and how to have social systems that work, cultural organizations and stuff like that. So I think that it's always important to qualify they rebelled against who exactly. Because in my book, if you see humans struggling and suffering and praying and saying, "Please send some help. We're trying to figure this out. We're trapped down here," which I believe we are, actually. We have chances to move along the axis, the cosmic axis. But maybe they answered our call, guys. Maybe they said, "You know what? Yeah, we'll come help you guys. We believe in you. And this is not right what's happening, what's being perpetrated on this planet against Mother Gaia, and all this stuff," who I think was the original creation factor in reference to the earth. So I think I tend to think that it's a dual story, and it depends on which dimension you're talking about. But when I see people or higher beings coming here to help us, and if it's really helping us, how can that be a bad thing? The person who is trying to do evil things is going to say, "Oh, that's a bad thing. Don't come help them." Which is why I always ask people, they're like, "My God" or "My Lord," and I say, "Describe that person for me. Tell me about who that is exactly. Tell me their characteristics. Tell me what they do. Tell me what they look like, and it better match up." Because when I read your religious text, if I really read your text and I see this, that your God that you believe in, and I'm not naming anyone, but I'll give a reference, the Old Testament, and your God is saying, "Oh yeah, I want the sacrifice of animals, and I want to just splatter blood on the altar." No, I'm not doing that shit. I don't know who you are. You're not a God. You're not a real God. That's a demon, That's a demon, guys.
Well, that's funny you said that, because I know Matt LaCroix talks about how Quetzalcoatl, who could have been Thoth, right? He came to the Mayans and he taught them about civilization and stuff. But then I thought I heard Matt say this. He said the Mayans were corrupted by this god or something that portrayed itself to be a god, and he called itself God El. And I don't know too much about that, but that would maybe explain why they were doing the human sacrifice, why they transitioned from being having the Mayan calendar and all the extravagant things that they're known for and then
yep.
cut ripping people's hearts out and stuff. I don't know how else we could.
Well, actually, it's amazing because I just read some things on that topic, actually, and I just read something even last night. So according to the book I'm reading right now, the Mayans came from Atlantis, which is not a stretch for a lot of people. And they supposedly, when they came to Central America, the Olmec were already there, and they already had their own traditions. These are the people with the big stone heads that they carved and everything. And
those statues are there, right? Those Olmec statues are in Mexico. They look like, it looks like an African statue, right?
Yeah, African or Polynesian, or definitely not local, or even possibly some Asiatic features in addition. It's like a combination in some ways. But the thing is that what I heard, this is actually what I heard about that specifically. I heard that the Toltecs, supposedly the Toltecs were like the masters of the wisdom in Central America. They were like the ones where if you want the real traditions, you go to them. And then the Aztecs supposedly found their temples. And by the way, Toltec wisdom is unbelievable. If you guys want to see Toltec wisdom, I think it's still uploaded. I hope it is. Go to Santos Bonacci's channel, Mr. Astrotheology on YouTube, and he has a Toltec wisdom person come in and talk. And I've never seen, I didn't even know they had these traditions in the Toltec traditions. And you know, I think they're fairly dispersed now, but it used to be like a master spiritual tradition. So what I heard is that actually the Aztecs came in, what I read actually is the Aztecs came in to their temples, the Toltec temples that were already built, which are the ones, you know, north of Mexico City, essentially on those, there's statues on platforms, but it's a vast area. And then they were corrupt people, supposedly, the Aztecs, and they found the temple and they say, oh, hey, yeah, let's sacrifice people on this. This would be a good idea. But that my understanding is they weren't the ones who built it. They found it just like, I think the Egyptians found the Sphinx, you know, all this stuff, and then they repurpose it. But the Mayan wisdom, I mean, just based on their calendar, and what I'm reading last night in my book here is absolutely phenomenal. And I really think that they were bringers of the real traditions in the beginning, and it probably got corrupted, just like everything else gets corrupted. It always gets corrupted, you know. But now, what's great is that with so many podcasters online, and you know, you have YouTube as a platform, but you've also got Odyssey and Rumble and BitChute and all these places. And you know, I don't think we're going to lose this information again. I think we're going to be okay now. So in that way, the only fair way to give someone a fair option and a fair choice is they have to see all of the pertinent information in front of them. If you're withholding any information, specifically with the intention to misdirect someone, that's not okay. That's an infraction of cosmic law. You need to have a free will choice, which means all of the information is laid out in front of you and it's explained to you clearly. Then you can say, yeah, you know what, my limited understanding would have made me choose this, but now that you're explaining it, I don't want to do that anymore. And that's one of the things I'm trying to do with my podcast and with Karen as well. Is like, let's get the information out to people, good information, things that are not fads, things that are long lasting, timeless information, and then let people decide for themselves. But you have to get it in front of them. This stuff wasn't in front of me until I was like 25. I was ready for it. It's probably 16. You know, come on. How about get it in front of me at 16? I would have been, where would I have been at this point? You know, if I had another like 20 years ahead of me.
Yeah, I agree.
Guys, we're out of time. I'm just wondering if this might be a good point to close on. But before we go, Robert, can you quickly tell the folks, especially those that are listening to this podcast on audio, where they can reach you?
You can, there's a couple ways. You can email me at typicalskeptic1@gmail.com. That's my email. If you want to, there's on my YouTube videos, there's ways you can donate. You can join my Patreon. You can join my Rockfin. But and then the easiest way is on Typical Skeptic Podcast on YouTube. And I'm on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all that. And I just want to thank you guys so much. You guys are awesome. And when you upload it, send me a link. I'll put your link on my community page so everybody can see it.
Yeah, we sure will. We sure will. Thank you, Robert, so much for making the time to be with us today. And as always, I really appreciate you, Dave Petrella. The links will be in the description below. And I hope all of you have a wonderful week, and we'll see you next time on Aliens and Astrology. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you. That was
Thank you for joining Dave and I for the Aliens and Astrology Show. Become the change you want to see in the world. Subscribe to our YouTube channels, click the like button, and share this show with your friends. Check out Karen's website at KarenHoltonHealthCoach.com. All the links will be in the description box below. Until the next time, keep up the good work.
Well, you challenge my perception. I shift uneasily as I try to justify how I value your suggestions. Ideas full of life when I'm empty of my own. And 5 minutes before I was okay, now the curtain drops to the floor. Leaves me weak and begging for more. When I think I get it, it flutters and vanishes away.